A billionaire threw his pregnant maid out into the cold, accusing her of ruining his reputation. She begged him to listen, but he slammed the door without looking back. Days later, a shocking medical report revealed the impossible truth: she was carrying his child. By the time he realized his mistake, she had vanished without a trace. His wealth could buy anything, except the chance to undo the heartbreak that changed both their lives forever. The rain poured heavily as a young woman stood silently in front of a luxurious mansion, holding a small bag and hiding tears in her eyes. Moments earlier, she had been accused of betrayal and dismissed without being allowed to explain. The wealthy owner believed lies instead of truth. With nowhere to go and a secret growing inside her, she walked away, unaware that this heartbreaking moment would change two lives forever. She rented a tiny room on the edge of the city. Every night she cried alone, wondering how life had become so cruel. She had once believed kindness and honesty would protect her, but reality proved otherwise. Despite her pain, she gently placed a hand on her stomach and promised the unborn child that love would never disappear, even if the world had turned its back on them. Several days later, the wealthy businessman visited a hospital for a routine checkup. While waiting, he accidentally overheard a doctor discussing a former patient who had recently discovered she was expecting a baby. Curious, he glanced at a forgotten medical document. The shocking truth struck him like lightning. The dates matched perfectly. The child could only be his, and regret instantly filled his heart. For the first time in years, money could not solve his problem. He searched every neighborhood, visited every address he knew, and questioned everyone who might have seen her. Days became weeks, but nobody knew where she had gone. Every empty street reminded him that trust had been replaced by pride, and pride had cost him the family he never knew he wanted. Meanwhile, she refused to surrender. She found work at a small bakery owned by an elderly couple who treated her with kindness and respect. They never asked painful questions about her past. They simply admired her honesty and determination. Although life remained difficult, hope slowly returned. She realized that true wealth was not measured by money but by the people willing to stand beside you. Back inside the enormous mansion, silence echoed through every hallway. Expensive furniture, luxury cars, and endless business success suddenly felt meaningless. Every room reminded him of the quiet moments they once shared over simple conversations. He finally understood that happiness had never lived inside his fortune. It had quietly walked away carrying the future he had foolishly rejected. One afternoon, months later, he stopped at a neighborhood bakery after noticing a familiar face through the window. Time seemed to freeze. She looked healthier but carried the visible signs of pregnancy. Their eyes met for only a moment before she turned away. He rushed inside, desperate to speak, but she calmly refused, explaining that broken trust could not be repaired with apologies alone. Instead of forcing another conversation, he chose patience. He quietly paid overdue rent for struggling families, donated food to local shelters, and supported the bakery without expecting recognition. He wanted to become a better man, not to impress anyone but because he finally understood how selfish and arrogant he had been. Real change begins with actions, not promises. The elderly bakery owners eventually learned the entire story. They explained how she had never spoken badly about him despite everything she had suffered. She only wished their child would grow up surrounded by kindness instead of hatred. Hearing those words shattered the last pieces of his pride. He realized forgiveness is never deserved automatically, it must be earned through humility and responsibility. One quiet evening, she finally agreed to meet him in a peaceful public park. He apologized without excuses, accepting full responsibility for the pain he had caused. She listened silently while protecting her growing child with both hands. Before leaving, she offered one sentence that gave him hope. If you truly want to be part of this child's life, prove it every single day, not with money, but with your heart. After their meeting, he stopped trying to impress her with expensive gifts. Instead, he showed up whenever she needed help, always respecting her boundaries. He attended medical appointments only when invited, listened more than he spoke, and quietly supported her journey into motherhood. For the first time in his life, he learned that love grows through patience, responsibility, and sincere actions. Months later, a storm swept across the city as she was rushed to the hospital. The delivery became complicated, and doctors worked tirelessly to protect both mother and baby. Sitting outside the operating room, he realized that every business success meant nothing compared to the lives behind those hospital doors. He prayed for a second chance he never believed he deserved. The silence ended with the joyful cry of a newborn baby. Tears filled his eyes as the doctor announced that both mother and child were safe. For the first time, he gently held the tiny life in his arms. The baby's innocent face reminded him that every child deserves love, protection, and parents willing to put pride aside. Fatherhood did not come naturally. Sleepless nights, diaper changes, feeding bottles, and comforting a crying baby became lessons no business school could teach. He made mistakes but never gave up. She quietly noticed his determination. The man who once cared only about profit was slowly becoming someone who valued family above everything else. Just as peace began to return, an old business rival spread false stories online, claiming the child existed only to steal the billionaire's fortune. Reporters surrounded the family, asking painful questions. Instead of hiding, he publicly accepted full responsibility, defending both mother and child with honesty. His courage silenced many critics, but the emotional scars remained. The difficult days brought them closer. They realized that trust is not built through perfect moments, but through facing hardships side by side. Every challenge strengthened their bond. Although they were not yet a complete family, they had become a united team whose greatest purpose was giving their child a peaceful and loving future. He made a surprising announcement to his company's board. He stepped back from several major projects and chose to spend more time with his family. Many executives questioned his decision, believing he was sacrificing success. He simply smiled, knowing that true success is measured by the people waiting for you at home, not the numbers in a bank account. One quiet morning, the baby smiled for the very first time. That tiny smile erased years of regret from his heart. Watching them together, she realized people can truly change when they accept responsibility instead of making excuses. Hope slowly replaced the pain that had once seemed impossible to overcome. A handwritten letter arrived from the elderly couple who had given her a job during her darkest days. They thanked the family for never forgetting kindness and reminded them that compassion creates miracles. Reading those heartfelt words, both parents understood that strangers can sometimes become the greatest blessings in a person's life. One evening, they returned to the park where their first honest conversation had taken place. He thanked her for believing that change was possible. She admitted that forgiveness had been difficult, but hatred would have stolen their child's happiness. Standing together beneath the evening sky, they looked toward the future, not as two perfect people, but as two imperfect hearts choosing love, trust, and responsibility every single day. Just when life finally felt peaceful, the child became seriously ill with a rare infection and was rushed to the hospital. Doctors worked through the night while both parents waited outside, terrified. Holding each other's hands, they realized that no amount of wealth could replace a healthy child. Love, faith, and hope became their only source of strength. Without hesitation, he canceled every business meeting and remained beside the hospital bed day and night. He barely slept, refusing to leave even for a moment. He read bedtime stories, sang gentle lullabies, and whispered promises of a bright future. Everyone around him saw a completely different man from the one who had once valued success above people. Though exhausted, she stayed calm for the sake of her child. She comforted worried nurses, encouraged other parents in the children's ward, and never allowed fear to overcome her kindness. Her quiet courage inspired everyone around her. Even in the darkest moments, she proved that a mother's love is stronger than pain, fear, or uncertainty. After several difficult days, the doctors finally shared wonderful news. The child was recovering well and would soon return home. Tears of relief filled the parents' eyes as they thanked every doctor and nurse. Walking out of the hospital together, they felt as if life had given them another chance to appreciate every ordinary moment. The frightening experience changed their priorities forever. Together, they created a charitable foundation to help struggling families pay for children's medical care. They remembered how helpless they had once felt and wanted no parent to face that burden alone. Their greatest investment was no longer in business, it was in giving hope to others. One afternoon, he returned to the mansion where everything had gone wrong. Looking around the silent halls, he admitted that pride had nearly destroyed his future. He apologized once more, not because he expected praise, but because true healing requires honesty. She smiled gently, knowing that real change is measured over time. not by a single apology. Months passed, and the once empty house echoed with the joyful laughter of a growing child. Toys covered the floor, bedtime stories replaced business reports, and family dinners became the happiest part of every day. The mansion that once felt cold and lonely had finally become a real home filled with warmth, love, and unforgettable memories. As the child celebrated another birthday, both parents made a heartfelt promise. They would always choose honesty over pride, forgiveness over anger, and family over wealth. They wanted their child to grow up understanding that true character is revealed not during success, but in the difficult moments when love demands sacrifice. One evening, they visited the small bakery where hope had returned during the darkest chapter of their lives. The elderly couple welcomed them with joyful tears. Looking around the familiar shop, they remembered every struggle that had brought them there. They realized that every painful experience had taught them compassion, humility, and gratitude for life's unexpected blessings. Standing together beneath a peaceful sunset, they understood that forgiveness had transformed their lives more than money ever could. The greatest riches were not found in luxury, but in trust, responsibility, kindness, and unconditional love. Their journey proved that mistakes do not define a person forever. When people accept responsibility, change their actions, and lead with compassion, broken hearts can heal, families can be restored, and hope can shine brighter than any fortune. Moral: never let pride make decisions that your heart will regret. Trust, honesty, responsibility, and kindness are worth far more than wealth, and genuine love is shown through actions, not words.